Thank you, Mia. You made a very clear link between, indeed, what is on the short run on the agenda and what makes vulnerability from economic and social point of view and climate point of view, because both, in fact, are converging and create the same impact on people. And it's clear that we have to rethink in depth, not just the global governance, but as well the articulation with private sector to be sure that we meet with these requirements. And you made a perfect transition to Nana Akufo-Addo, Mr. President, because you're president of Ghana, but as well president of V20 and these vulnerable countries. And Prime Minister Motley started to insist on the multi-factors of vulnerability, but as well insist on the fact that this is a huge agenda for your countries and all of us. So what's your view, not just on COP28, but the agenda to come, the first action we took, but where should be our priority in order to allow the V20 to succeed?
Mr. President, thank you very much, first of all, for the invitation, and the organizers of the Peace Forum for the invitation to participate for the first time, the work of this important organization. But I think I have also to join those who have spoken before in commending you for the stance that you have taken in trying to address some of the critical issues of our world today, and for the boldness of your leadership. There are many others in your position who are not speaking out on some of these matters, but you are speaking out, and more than speaking out, acting. And I think that that is really a matter for strong commendation, and we want to wish you the very best of luck in continuing this journey. It cannot be easy for you, having regard to what's going on here and in the rest of the world, but it is important that that work is being done and that you have stepped up to do that work. In the same way that Prime Minister Motley identified the work that the Managing Director of the IMF is doing, I want to add my voice to it, that we're seeing a situation where the calls that some of us have been making for transformation in the way the Bretton Woods organizations work is being heeded, and being heeded not just in resolutions, but in concrete actions that are being taken. And that's somebody else also that needs to be very strongly commended, is the Kristalina Georgieva, for the work that she's doing in this area. And at the end of the day, what is the critical part of this work for us? And I speak for us, for those of us on the African continent. That at the moment when we are looking to make this transformative development that we need to do to tackle issues of mass poverty and underdevelopment, we're told that some of our most important resources can no longer be deployed for our development. Our oil, our gas resources, which are there in abundance, can no longer be deployed because of its impact on climate change. So that for us is a critical issue we have to look at. If indeed we are being told that these resources that have helped develop other parts of the world are no longer going to be available for our development, how then do we make the transition to the new source of power and development? And it's clear we don't have the resources to do that. There's just, whatever the reason for it, the resources are not just there. So we have to address the issue of financing and the resources for the climate transition in our part of the world. And if it is going to be a just and equitable transition, some position has to be found for the manner in which we can then utilize the resources that we do have. For us to be told that they have to be abandoned in its entirety is basically to telling us to continue to face a future of hopelessness. And that is not one that we can, in any equanimity, contemplate. We have to look at a situation whereby the transition that we're looking at takes into account the resources that we have. So we're having to have a look at this big question, and the major issue being the financing, the access to investment and to financing. And I think there's something that we now, all of us, also ought to look at more strongly. And that is the role that the institutions like the bank, the fund, the World Bank, and the fund can play in helping to mobilize private capital to support the development of the world. We're all aware that there is so much more money in private hands than there are in the public institutions. And how can this larger amount of capital be made to work for and I have to agree with Prime Minister Motley that the matter cannot just be about climate change, because there are other matters that are of equal significance. In the last 3 months, Ghana has faced extraordinary rainfall patterns that we have never experienced in our history before. It has led to flooding and the spillage of our dam and to flooding of critical food-growing areas of our country. The soil is being destroyed in many parts of the country that is going to make replanting of food and the reuse of those lands a difficulty for us. If we don't take some very, very dramatic actions now, food supply in the years down the road, in 2, 3, 4 years' time, is going to be a major issue for the country. So that, for instance, is a matter of tremendous concern for us. How do we mobilize the capital to be able to deal with the food crisis that is on the horizon in Ghana? So the multiplicity of the issues confronting us also require a multiplicity of responses. But at the heart of all of those responses is a very simple, ancient issue: money. Yes, it doesn't change from century to century, from generation to generation, access to capital and to money. And I think that a lot of our energies, what we're looking at is how we can frame a new arrangement where the institutions, the multilateral institutions, like the bank, like the fund, can play in the process of mobilizing the greater resources that the world needs for its development. It's an easy thing to say, but a difficult thing to do. But it is important also that alongside the changes that have to be made is a change in mindset. Is it necessary for prosperity in Europe and in the West, in parts of Asia, to be predicated on poverty in the rest of the world, in Africa and other parts? Are the two necessary to live side by side? Is it possible that we can contemplate a world whereby all of us can live together on this planet in relative comfort, and that some people will not live in super comfort and other people in super poverty? That challenge to the thinking and the mindset of people is something that in our generation we have to address. Is it possible for us to create a world where all of us live together on this planet in relative ease? Well, the resources of the world are there. Never has there been a time when there has been greater abundance of technology, of wealth, of the development that we are seeing in many parts of the world. They have to be restricted to those parts of the world, or they can be made a universal and a global phenomenon? These are some of the matters that we're going to have to look at, and we have to make, because if we're going to solve these multifaceted problems and put ourselves in a position to hand over to the next generation and succeeding generations a more constructive and better world, we have to deal with these questions. So, Mr. President, you have been very much in the forefront of the thinking on many matters. I will leave you with this conundrum also to deal with. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed for your time.